Japanese beetles are making a return to the eastern side of the state. Nebraska Extension entomologist Bob Wright joined us to discuss the beetle and how to accurately assess the defoliation levels of corn and soybeans.
They've been emerging in eastern Nebraska the last week or so, and now is the time people should be checking their corn and soybean fields for possible injury from these insects.
And it's not just the east anymore, isn't it? It's also starting to appear a little further west.
Right, they've been moving out into Nebraska the past several years. Initially, we had populations in urban areas in Omaha and Lincoln, and a pattern we've seen in a lot of states is they start off in urban areas, and then when the populations build up, they sort of boil over into agricultural areas, and that's what we're seeing in Nebraska.
Any other kind of changes we should look for this year?
Well, so far it seems like the numbers have been pretty good. Again, there'll be some people who haven't seen them in corn and soybeans in the past may see them for the first time this year. They're continuing to spread and distribute themselves across the state. So new infestations are certainly possible. If you haven't had them before, you could have them this year, so check.
And before you're thinking about treatment, you need to look at the entire area, right?
Right. In both corn and soybeans, they tend to build up on the outside, the edges of the fields first. And so if you see a lot of beetles on the edge of the field, don't necessarily assume they're throughout the field, that you need to spray the whole field.
And what kind of treatments are available?
Well, a lot of people are using some of the pyrethroid insecticides or pyrethroids combined with other insecticides. There's multiple products that are available that are effective against Japanese beetles. I guess one of the issues is that the beetles are emerging over a 3 to 4 week period, and then they live for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So we're going to have Japanese beetles around through August, and that often confuses people. They think, boy, they live a long time. It's not so much they live a long time as that they're emerging over, they don't all emerge as adults at one time. They emerge over several weeks, and then they live several weeks, and then they can also move around from field to field as needed.
So it's not something that people should think that they're going to get rid of and they're going to be completely gone.
No, and again, they have a very broad host range. The immature stages or white grubs, they can be in brome grass pastures or brome grass roadsides or field ditches. So they're not necessarily living in the crop fields, but there's a lot of habitats that the larvae can develop in.
And you've written an article that appeared in Crop Watch that sort of gave a 5-step look at what people should be doing.
Well, there's one issue in soybeans. In terms, the main way we judge whether or not it's going to pay to treat is the defoliation level, leaf loss, and the Japanese beetles tend to feed on the upper newer leaves. And when you walk into the field, you really notice that, and you think, this is terrible. I have lost a lot of leaves in the upper part of the canopy. But to really make a treatment decision, you need to look over the whole canopy. And a lot of our soybeans are in reproductive stages now, and if we have 20% defoliation averaged over the whole canopy, that's a level you want to treat. If we still have some vegetative soybeans, you want to treat before they exceed 30% defoliation. But it takes some practice. The other thing we have on the Crop Watch article is some samples of different levels of defoliation. Oftentimes people overestimate the defoliation level, and we have some photos that can help you do a little training so you're ready to know how much defoliation is there. In corn, it's a different issue. The beetles will feed on the leaves as they first emerge, but that's not economic damage. But as soon as the silks start emerging in corn, that's where the Japanese beetles like to feed, and if they're abundant enough, they can interfere with pollination. So just the same with rootworm beetles, we want to check and see how much silk clipping there is. If they've clipped the silks down to the husk level and there's no silks exposed to pick up the pollen, we want to treat in that case. Again, watch on corn. They may be more abundant in the field borders than the whole field.
And just to make it confusing, there's also a false beetle, Japanese beetle out there.
Right, some people are confused. There's another related beetle called the false Japanese beetle or sand chafer. It's mostly found in the Platte River Valley and other areas with a lot of sandy soils. It doesn't feed as much as an adult as the Japanese beetle, so it's a lot less economically damaging. Is colored differently. The Japanese beetle has a metallic green area behind its head, and it has white tufts of hair along the edge of its abdomen. The false Japanese beetle or sand chafer is uniform in color, oftentimes a coppery color, sometimes totally black, but it doesn't have these white tufts of hair, and it's not an economic issue in corn or soybeans in terms of the adult feeding.